my feed is fucked because everyone now is talking about Korea and Japan, and also everyone is comparing Korea and Japan. And I don't know how that happened. I really don't know, but somehow Korea is always sold as the cheaper, the cooler, and the better version of Japan. And not gonna lie, after living for over a year in Tokyo and traveling through Korea for 3.5 weeks, I have to say, nope. I disagree. I do not agree at all. Sorry, but no. Sorry, but not sorry, right? I personally think Korea is not better than Japan. Because Korea is Korea and Japan is Japan. And I don't know why people even start comparing countries when they have like a little bit of a similar background or being at the same continent. Like, I don't get it. And just because you have a little bit of similarities, I don't think you can compare these two countries and then decide, hey, this one is better than the other one. No, I don't get it. Like, why? I mean, I feel it's the same if I would say as a German person, you know what? Every country in Europe is the same, and I choose this country is better than everything else. No, that's bullshit. I think this is so stupid. Like, of course, you have similarities, and you will have some differences too, but compare these to, like, comparing two countries and then decide, hey, this is better. That feels wrong. That feels so off. And honestly, Korea is nice, but so is Japan. And I think you cannot just say, like, just because Japan is a little bit more expensive than Korea, you cannot say, you know what, Korea is better. No. And I just don't think, like, comparable, not really. Like, there are similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. And that's exactly what we're gonna talk about here today. And I'm gonna give you, like, spoiler alert, like, my honest, raw opinion. So you don't get, like, this Instagram feed stuff or TikTok where I feel like, oh yeah, this is why Korea is definitely better, or this is why Japan is definitely better. No. I'm just saying, like, hey, I saw these differences and I'm here to share, okay? So let's start with the similarities. And speaking of Tokyo and Seoul, the main capitals of the countries, yeah, I have to say, yeah, there are a lot of nice restaurants and not a lot of cool themed special cafes. Fashion, top notch. If you want to go shopping, well, where to start? And everything is very convenient. So the transportation system is nice, convenience stores, everything is cool. It's good. But yeah, I have to say, there's one huge major thing, which felt completely different. And this is the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is just created by people, right? So I'm talking mainly about people. And I don't want to say, like, this is all exclusive to Tokyo and Seoul, but I've seen, like, these behaviors all over these specific countries. So I'm just saying, like, okay, there we go. So Tokyo feels much bigger. And of course it is as well, but even though it's so much bigger than Seoul, it feels cleaner, calmer, and more organized. And don't get me wrong, it's not like there are not many people. I mean, Tokyo is freaking crowded. Especially if you have been to Shibuya Crossing, this is a mess. People walk all over the place, but still, somehow, it's a little bit organized because there are still a few rules where people follow and abide by. And also, one thing I realized it is clean. And yeah, I mean, party area, Shinjuku, for example. In the evening, when people get off work, they want to ease off, they want to have a party, they want to feel good. They drink a lot of alcohol. You will see like cans, trash, and even alcohol on the floor. And you feel like, ooh, wow, what's happening? So you also see rats because trash is attracting these little fellers. And you feel like, oh, but the next morning, it is as if nothing has ever happened because it got clean. It was like cleaning stuff, working on it, and yeah. Whereas Korea feels honestly louder, rougher, more chaotic, and less clean. And let me explain the less clean part. So I arrived in Gangnam, and I don't know if this is the best place to stay in Seoul. I really don't know, but it was cheap. And there were a lot of universities, and I saw a lot of young people walking around and super cool, high cool fashion quality, but they were all smoking. And I felt like, that is so weird. I thought smoking is kind of outdated and no one is doing it anymore, but yeah, apparently I was wrong. And with that being said, you could find a lot of cigarettes on the floor. And I felt like, that's so weird because in Japan, you can only smoke in small dedicated areas and everywhere else it's prohibited. And maybe that's also one of the reasons why Japan or why Tokyo is so clean. And yeah, another thing I have to admit, actually, like, we know that both countries, Japan and Korea, and especially Tokyo and Seoul, are high in fashion. And I mean, everyone is dressed so well, where I just feel like, well, I just have a shirt and that's it. And anyways, so the fashion is really, really cool. But I have to say, there is a difference. I personally think in Japan, people have more of a unique style. They're more individual and they want to be like, I think they just want to be different from the crowd. Where in Korea, like the style is also like individual, but there's a huge emphasis on plastic surgery and beauty standards and skincare. And not gonna lie, I think their skincare is working because I saw a lot of old people where I felt like, wow, what is your secret? But the thing, what I feel is like a little bit like terrifying in Korea is that plastic surgery seems to be so normalized, especially in Seoul. You see so many advertisements and people just kind of like really preaching, hey, you need to get plastic surgery, that you're pretty and you have some value. And I think this puts also a lot of pressure on younger people. And I think both countries, Japan and Korea, so also the big cities, Seoul and Tokyo, the young people suffer from fitting in and like finding their space in the world. And if you put another pressure on, hey, you need to look pretty or you need to look like a specific standard, wow, that's heavy. And I think in this case, like, yeah, it's a little bit nicer to be in Japan, but prove me wrong. I don't know. I have actually no sense of fashion or anything, so I don't know. Another thing, what I realized while traveling or living in these cities, is that food, especially as a vegetarian or vegan, is something different. And I have to say, in Korea, it's definitely easier to be vegetarian. Vegetarian is super, super easy. In every restaurant, you can order something. And if you want to get rid of the animal product, just remove the egg. Just tell the stuff. It's really super easy. I had no problems. I felt like, wow, this is so different from Japan, especially Tokyo. I mean, there are always a few vegan restaurants, but they're quite pricey. So I was very positively surprised that, yeah, Korea, it's finally easy to be vegan/vegetarian again. But this only applies to restaurants somehow, because convenience stores are a different story. So in Tokyo, I used to eat a lot of like onigiri with pickled plum, or these inari sushi where it's just like rice with tofu skin. Perfectly fine for me, nice snack, or even tofu bars. They had this stuff. But when I went to convenience stores in Korea, I don't like the convenience stores. They're really, really nice if you love meat and fish, because they even have onigiri, but only with meat and fish. And literally all these little snacks, they contain animal products. So a little bit difficult. And I always ate like some kimchi ramen, which were apparently vegan actually. And yeah, that's it. And I always over and over went through these kimchi ramens where I felt like, oh man, I really have to go to a restaurant. But I have to say, I don't like to go to restaurants when I'm by myself. And I mean, I'm solo traveling all the time, and yeah, I feel like, you don't need to go to a restaurant. You don't need to spend money. Just get a small snack. And yeah, that's why it was a little bit difficult, to be honest. So that's why I have to say, like, honestly, like, when it comes to vegetarian food, especially like restaurants, clear winner is Korea for me at this point. But yeah, when it comes to convenience stores, oh, Japan is much cooler. Like, you have 7-Eleven, Family Mart, Lawson, and the 7-Eleven in Korea is completely different. It looks also kind of small, but maybe that was just like all the stores I went to, because I used to go to G27 and CU convenience stores, and yeah, there I got my kimchi ramen. So speaking of all of this, I think these are like differences which are kind of shallow. It's just like the standard, but a city or a place is living from because of the people, right? And this is the point where I really felt the biggest difference between Japanese people and Koreans. And yeah, if you've ever been to Japan, you know that they're extremely polite, like so polite that you feel like, huh, what? So customer service in Japan is on another level. So friendly, so good. I love it. But on the other side, people also bow all the time. They apologize even though it's not their fault. You know, I bumped into someone, I had to apologize, but the other person was like, I'm so sorry, and bowing, and I felt like, it's not your fault, come on. And this Japanese politeness can also feel like super, super formal, and you don't know if someone is actually sorry or trying to be friendly or make it up to you, or if they're just following a social script. And this is the main problem, I think. Like, sometimes Japanese people seem a little bit like robotic or just too kind, too polite, whereas Koreans are definitely more direct. And I like that. I like it when someone is telling me in my face, hey, what's going on? What is the problem? You would never hear that from Japanese people, like really not. And people in Korea, they're not always soft. They're not always smiley or whatever. And sometimes they even push you around. And I'm not even joking, especially the old women. Whew, they just pretend you're not there. They just push you away and you feel like, okay, am I a ghost apparently? Yes, and well, but in general, I still would say like Japan is not friendlier than Korea, and Korea is automatically unfriendly. No, that would be too simple. It's just different. I think Japan feels more polite, whereas Korea feels more direct. And with the directness, I think like it just feels like more social, like less robotic, I'd say. But there are things And I think this is like literally the biggest problem I have had in Korea. And this is maybe also just a little bit personal. But me as a German, I like it to have my personal space. I just like it. And especially with strangers, it's always like an arm fling of like distance, like maybe from COVID time. But Germans like to keep this distance unless it's with friends and family. And the same applies for Japan. In Japan, people have their distance, and I don't know, even during rush hour, it feels like, people really try to not push you or step on your feet, whatever. Whereas in Korea, there is no personal space existent. No, I don't think so. They ever heard of that? I don't know. And I have a lot of stories where I'm at a counter literally ordering stuff through a tablet, and next to me there is a person standing and waiting that it's his turn, where I feel like, well, I don't know, can you just like step behind? And the funny thing is, they're not waiting behind you like in a normal queue. No, next to you. And I felt like, okay, I don't like it when you see my pin, like my pin for my credit card or whatever. I feel like, go away. And with the personal space as well, people bump into you like shoulder on shoulder. And I felt like at first I felt so offended, like, hey, what the hell? But then I read a little bit into it, and apparently it's normal in Korea. And I feel like, this is weird. Like, I prefer to be like friendly and kind to each other instead of like bumping into each other. I don't know. And it's the same with physical contact. Like, I had many Koreans, especially old ladies, as I said, who were just like pushing my back or pushing my arm. I felt like, oh, okay, so we're touching now. Would never happen in Japan. Never, ever. But, yeah. As you can see, there are a few big differences where I always feel like, how can you compare Japan and Korea with each other? I think you should never, and you cannot. But I have to say, like, I think Korea is a little bit more expressive. It feels a little bit more alive, but on the same hand, it's also a little bit rude and not as polite as Japan. And I don't know, like, especially comparing these two countries, especially with their history, it feels like I wouldn't agree. And what I saw, at least on my feed, that people say that Korea is just better because the main thing is it's cheaper. And I think, honestly, if you're stating that one country is just better just because it's cheaper, that's so unfair and also so incorrect. I don't know. I would never do this because the tradition is different, the culture is different, and like I feel honestly it's a little bit ignorant. Korea is Korea and Japan is Japan. There are some similarities, but you cannot compare these two countries that they're both the same, and then just because Korea is cheaper, yeah, that's the truth. No, definitely not. But yeah, that's all I can say. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and tell me which differences you also experienced, or which similarities, what you prefer. Write it down in the comments, subscribe, and see you next week!